Well, sounds good. Well, I will turn it over to Mike. I'm going to mute here and let Mike go at it.
Yeah. Hey guys, let me get my let me get my screen set up here. And we'll get going here. Let's see. Everybody able to see my screen here? Should see a document that says Spring Point on top. Yep, get the
Yep.
thumbs up from everybody. Okay, good deal. So thanks for joining us today. Okay, so the QM Wizard, its primary focus is for the shop floor technicians. Replacing those paper packets, the things that are floating around the shop floor, whether they go missing or you get dirty fingerprints, they're all greasy by the time you get to them, or maybe you're taking all those repair packets and having a department now transpose all that into something digital for a report to send to your customer. So we really focus on trying to eliminate a couple things. One is that paperwork, floating around the shop floor. And then the other thing is your report time. I know the shop I came from is a considerable amount of time that we spent filling out reports. And so the reason I got started in this is because of reports. Actually, when I was working at Shermco, running the quality department, we actually had customers that would maybe withhold a PO until they got their report, just because of the lead time waiting on to get the report after they actually shipped their unit was taking a really long time. And so we had to have a way to get reports out efficiently. And so while I was there, we used an off-the-shelf software that wasn't really designed for what it was, but we were able to get us paperless in an effort to get reports out on time. Now, where the gap was in it was we didn't have like validation checking, so flagging things when they're out of tolerance. Really getting the overall quality management out of the software to work for us. And so, and that's what led me into Spring Point, and they were working on QM Wizard, and this is a much robust piece of software for managing that. And so the way it works is we start with your basically, so what you're looking at is just my demo form for this for today. Don't think of this as a full repair all the way from inspection down to assembly and repair and things like that. But this will show you the functionality of how technicians interact with taking pictures and typing in measurements and running reports and getting the information out of it that you need. So for us to start with everything, we need to start with the paperwork. And what we do is we convert that over to a PDF. So you'll see this is just kind of a bare bones report. So either we can start with the report, or we can work with your repair paperwork and then generate a formatted report to look any way you want to off of that information, however you want to do it. But this is the form that we're going to be working on today. Just kind of show you how I set things up. I use a program, we use Adobe Acrobat Pro. This allows us to create what we call interactive form fields. And so if I switch over to this PDF here, you'll see I've come in, and through Adobe PDF, I've been able, Acrobat, been able to create what we call these interactive form fields. And these fields what they do is they create a task in QM Wizard. So once we import this, so if we uploaded this, we would get a task here called customer name. And several more: job number, manufacturer, reason for repair. And if you notice, each one is kind of named specifically. So if I double click on this one and pull up the properties here, it says needed repairs to stator windings. And so what this does is we'll create a task for the technician to fill in. And by giving it the name of this, it also names the task. So that way that the technicians understand what needs to be typed in here. And at the same time, we get ready to generate a report. This is how it knows to take that entry from the technician and then plug it back in here on its spot on the report. We can set these reports up with text boxes. So a lot of these fields are just common text boxes, but we can also create checkboxes or radio buttons. And so let me kick it into this preview mode, and you'll see here, these have been created as checkboxes, or in this case here for the coupling and pulley, I have a task called, was it received with a coupling or pulley? And then the technician gets these two options to select from. If we set them up as a radio button here on the PDF, then it will be a radio button in QM Wizard. If we create a drop-down menu item here on the PDF, then it will also create a drop-down menu item in QM Wizard for the technician. So however you set those up in the formatting here, we will honor that in the QM Wizard side. So, and then once we get finished with the PDF and the report and we have everything looking the way we want, then we can import this into QM Wizard. There is some configuration and setup items that we'd have to do once we upload it. One of those being is when you upload this, this would create individual tasks, one line at a time, 1 line, 2 line, 3 line. And for the technician, they'd have to navigate from the first one and then go to the second one, then to the third one. So what you can do is actually pair these up in groupings within QM Wizard. So that way all the related tasks are associated within a single grouping here. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. And then the other setup and things that we could do are creating validation for those min-max tolerances, flagging things for when they're failing, whatever that may be. It can be off of a keyword from just saying fail. It can be doing a calculation and configuring the min-max tolerances based on a percentage or whatever that may be, and then we can evaluate those measurements against it. So this is my PDF report. This is what I use to generate my tasks. And then later when we get done with this, then we'll come back out here and then we'll run a report through QM Wizard and we'll show how this gets filled in and then how easy we can email it from the system and send to our customers or whatever we need to do. So I'm going to jump over into the QM Wizard now. I'll go over a couple things here that we're looking at first, and then we'll create a new job, and then we'll work through some of these tasks and then generate a report, and then we can go over some questions afterwards. All right. The screen we're looking at now is what we refer to as our QM Wizard dashboard. This is a screen that is saved just for users that are assigned to a supervisor role or an administrator role. And so to kind of go over some of our roles, our role permission levels, we have 4. We have a basic 1 user. This is our most restrictive user setting. And what it does is it forces the technician to go line by line. They can't go to step 2 until they do step 1. They can't go to step 3 until they do the first 2 steps and so on. So it's set up the way you organize it and you structure the order that you want it to show in. The idea being you know, starting from receiving all the way through disassembly to your, and then through your repair and assembly. And so we kind of build them up in that order. The other one we have is a basic user level 2. They have a little more freedom in what they can do. So they can do tasks out of order. So they don't have to start at number 1. They can jump down to task number 5 and begin work. And then some of the other things we can do is by filtering out tasks that only apply to certain areas. So if a technician is assigned to, let's say, I like to use the 3 most common: machining department, rewind department, and mechanical department. And if one of your users is a basic 1 user or most restrictive, and they're assigned to, let's say, the mechanical department, when they log in and they go to fill in their tasks and work on a job, it will filter out only the mechanical portion for them, and they will not be able to work tasks outside of it. So if they need to see tasks that belong to rewind or the machining department, they will not be able to do that. Now, a basic level 2 user, if they are assigned to one of these repair departments, when they log in by default, it is going to filter out the tasks that apply to the department they're assigned to, but they do have the ability to unfilter these tasks and see tasks that belong to other areas. And again, I have some examples of that here in just a minute. Our next 2 user levels are going to be supervisor. What this does for a supervisor is the screen you're looking at. This screen is just for supervisors or administrators. And what this is to kind of help give them some overall job insight, where things are at on the floor by progress, by status, and be able to quickly pull up any attachments or anything like that. And so this screen here will not be seen by the basic users. All right, and the next thing that the supervisors and administrators have over the basic users is the capability to create a new job, create a new customer, edit job property things, details and information like that. Basic users are limited from being able to access that information. So, and then the administrator is the person with all the rights to the site. What it does is it unlocks an administration tab up here for them. And they have the options for form manager and validation manager and some system manager settings and things like that. This is where you would configure the forms, you would set up those pass-fail tolerances, and things like that. And so that is reserved just for your administrator to set those up. All right. So to explain a little bit about the dashboards is we have what we refer to as widgets. I have one widget here called Open Jobs with Forms. Another one, Assistance Required in Jobs with Failures. The Open Jobs with Forms widget is showing me all the jobs, and when it says with form, it means that we have that associated repair packet assigned to this job. So if you have a DC unit come in for repair and you have a dedicated DC form, then you associate that form or your repair packet, whatever your terminology is for that, to the job. And then now it will show up in this widget here. Now we do have a toggle where I can toggle this on and off. And so if I toggle this, now we'll see it's open jobs without forms, meaning these are jobs that were opened up, but they have no repair packet or anything associated with the job. So the reason we do this is kind of filter out standard versus non-standard. You may have some jobs that come into your facility that are not going to go through the full QM Wizard process. Maybe it's just come in for maybe a fan just to be balanced. Maybe just something non-typical that you're really not going to run all the way through QM Wizard. But in the case you do decide to associate a form, then you can quickly toggle this and then find your job that you're looking for, and then click on that job number and go into the properties of it. All right, we'll toggle that back on. The other thing we have here are some color code combos here, or from some filters. And if you'll notice here, I've got a job number associated here and it's highlighted in yellow. And it has a priority assigned to it as standard. You can associate color codes with the different priorities that you have. So if I have other priorities, let's say I filtered by yellow and it filters out rush with no OT, and I can filter out by the color that is turned yellow here. And then red, maybe you have some emergency jobs and you want to do something to draw attention to it. So you can associate a small like attention icon to it and then assign a color to it. And these colors are configurable by yourself. And so then we can clear this out and then return back to our unfiltered page. Everything you see here, the columns here, everything that is in blue is actually a clickable link. So our order date column here is always going to be newest first on top. Then we get a column here with our job number, what the status is of that job, the customer name, and then progress. And then, of course, I went over priority, and then we'll go over this column here in just a sec. Every column is searchable at the top. So if I really want to quickly filter down to everything that I have in QA that belongs to, let's say, Poly products, then I can quickly narrow down my list and be able to see where those jobs are at and then what progress that we have on them. Now we have this progress column and it's weighted by the amount of tasks that a form has. So if a form has 100 tasks and 10 of them have been filled in, then we would have 10% overall completion here. And this is the overall completion of those. But if I click on this, you'll notice then I can break it down by the individual departments that belong to this form. This HP1, you'll see it has 0%. These are inactive tasks. It's just showing 0%. We are 100% on this job. But I can see here the tasks that are assigned in the machining department are 100% complete, and the mechanical department as well, and then the winding department. If we have some others, and maybe I can look into and I can see, okay, only 90% of the machining tasks are complete here on this job. And these repair departments here are configurable by yourself. You can customize them. We just like to use the 3 main common ones that are in the repair shops there. And then the last column here is anytime there's been an attachment uploaded to this job. So a picture's been taken, a report's been generated, a document's been uploaded. Anytime that it's been uploaded to the job, then what we can do is quickly click on this icon and then get right into where these attachments are. So like I mentioned, any reports that have been uploaded, pictures that have been taken along the way, and then we can quickly get to these. And then even from here, we can email them. This little area that I just jumped into is called the attachment manager. And that's what it does. It just filters out our job number for us and then all the attachments that go along with it. All right. The next widget here is the assistance required widget. We use this in a couple different ways. Within QM Wizard, we have instant messaging system. So internally, if I'm at my workstation and we're trying to, we want to promote efficiency, and one of the most efficient things is movement. And if I'm a technician having to walk around and find my supervisor, that obviously takes up a lot of time throughout the day if you add it up across several different technicians. So in here, we have the instant messaging system. And so in that case, I could find my supervisor, send him a message and say, hey, I could really use some help looking at this, please come see me. And once that message gets sent, the technician can send it to a specific supervisor. But if for some reason that supervisor may be out on PTO, sick for the day or whatever it may be, that message will still be displayed here in this widget. And I do have an example of that later. And then they can respond back to the technician or just know that they need to go and talk with that technician. But there is that two-way communication here in the system with that. The other way we use it is for in-process quality checkpoints or hold points or whatever terminology if you use them. But in QM Wizard, you can set up different little stop points along the way. So let's say, for example, you get down at the end of your disassembly and inspection and it's ready to go to quoting. What we can do is put a hold on the job. We'll notify the technician that, hey, you've reached this quality control checkpoint. And now your supervisor needs to be involved at this. And so at the hold point, they can come out here when a job goes on hold. It will show up here in this widget. And again, I have an example later. And then they can approve the hold point, or at least gives them a chance to go in and review the job. And if everything's the way they like, and let's say we receive the approval back from our customer, then we can unlock these tasks and then return the work back to the shop floor. And so then the technicians continue working. Our hold points can be built in two different ways. One hold point is just a quick, you scan through your job, you review it, everything is there like you need, and then you hit an approval button and then type in the password that's been created. And then the hold will be released. The other way it can be set up is if a hold point is triggered and your supervisor or your hold point approver, or your QA check person, whoever this may be, maybe you require them to have their own sets of checks first. So let's say, for example, a machinist finishes machining an in-bell and he inputs his measurements, and then a hold point gets triggered here. That gives the supervisor an opportunity to come over there, review his measurements, but maybe your quality assurance guy also takes his own sets of measurements. So it would require them to collect their own sets of measurements. And then once his measurements are completed, then the hold point can be released. So there's a couple different ways we can set those up. And then the last widget here is jobs with failures. When you're setting up these forms, I mentioned you can create these pass-fail tolerances and validation on these tasks. And so once one of those gets triggered, what we can do is actually flag it and associate it on a report. So here you'll see I've got my job number, the status the job is in, who the customer is, and then the number of fails that have occurred on each one of these jobs. And similar to the progress, if I click on this 2, then we'll see I had 1 occur here in the machining department and 1 within the winding department. And then if I wanted to pull up a report on those, then I can click on this PDF icon here, pull up this failure report. Let me just zoom in for you here. And then what it does, it provides you with the name of the task, the date that the failure occurred on, the result that was typed in or calculated. In this case, it was equal to fail. And it happened in the machining department by Mike. And so if I needed to go and ask questions to Mike, then I know I can go back and talk to him about this. The other thing is we can set up these validations where either a password is required to accept it, or it can just be a simple failure and let the technician continue on. And I'll show an example of that here. And then we've got one more here for air gaps. We also require the technician to type in a note anytime something's been found out of validation. And so in this case, they just typed in undersize. The next one would be air gaps. I can see it was out of tolerance. And also, again, Mike did it. And this time, no password was required to acknowledge this failure. And then the note here was the bearing dropped and couldn't measure. So some ways you can use this failure report. Once you get all your tasks set up the way you like and you get these validations, you can start using this report to kind of help you with quoting for your job. You can pull up this report and then quickly see and identify all the tasks it filled. If your technician typed in a good comment, which we encourage, then you know maybe you need to order parts, schedule, quote to repair the parts, or whatever that may be. And so you can kind of use that as a little guide to help you through your quoting. All right. So that is the dashboard widget. And again, that is just for people who are supervisor or administrator roles. All right. So our next step is I'm just going to create a new job here. We'll get our repair packet associated with it, and then we'll begin doing some tasks and uploading some photos, and then we'll generate a report. So to create a new job, we have a quick add menu up here with this plus sign. And underneath it, I just can quickly say add to job or add job. The other way we do it is we have a jobs tab up here at the top. I could click on jobs tab and also have an add job button here. I'll use a quick add. We'll go add job. There is a department selection here. I do not have set up in this demo database, but you can compartmentalize your repair departments. And so if you have different job numbers depending on the repair department associated with it, so in this case, maybe motor shop versus field service job numbers. Here I just have a default department, but if I had a motor shop or repair shop option, selecting that will automatically retrieve the next job number in sequence for that department. Or if I click field service, and let's say you have a different job number that begins with a different series of letters or something to identify it as a field service job, then it would pull the next job associated with it. Here we can create a custom job number if we want to. You know, if we want to, we'll just leave it at job 4. I got no problem with that. All right, the customer field. If I start typing in a few letters, like I used poly products earlier, I can start typing in. I list narrows down to that particular customer. Let's just see. I like to type in just a few letters and we can narrow down, and then we can quickly pull up the customer by doing that. We can assign a customer contact here. If the customer contact, if they've been set up with this particular customer, this list would be filtered out to that particular customer. So you'd only see the contacts that belong to this customer. The next piece of information is the nameplate class. So this is going to create the job, but also give us the correct nameplate fields associated with the piece of equipment that was coming in. So if it were a blower and I selected blower, I would get blower nameplate information associated. If I select motor, then I'm going to get motor nameplate fields. And all these pieces of equipment that you see here, blower, brake, breakers, clutch, compressor, some of these common items here come already in QM Wizard. And then you can custom create your own nameplate classes if you want, or adjust the ones that we include out of the box. So I'm going to go ahead and assign a motor to this. And then the next option is for equipment. We use equipment IDs in a way so we can start linking repair history. So let's say you receive a piece of equipment in and you assign it a unique ID for this piece of equipment. It can be the name, like maybe if your customer calls it circulating water pump 8 or main mill motor number 4. You can give these a unique ID if you choose to. And what this ID does later is, let's say this unit comes back into your facility 2 years from now and it needs some more repairs. What I can do is, if you associated an equipment ID with this, then instead of letting the system just give me the next sequential ID, I can select from an existing, and it will filter out the equipment associated with this customer only. But what that does is allow me to start linking repair history. I can see it came in 2 years ago, and then 2 years from now, it's come in again, and I pull this equipment ID. Now I can see that history from the previous repair, but also it will go and automatically retrieve any nameplate data from the previous time in and go ahead and copy that over for me, so we're not having to do double entry. In this case, let's say it's our first time we've seen this motor, so we'll let the system just generate the next sequential ID for us. I'll hit create. All right. And then, so we've got our job created here, and what it does is it takes us into what we refer to as our job details page, and I've got a pop-up window here. In your nameplate setups, you can set up certain fields as being required. So anytime that I can dismiss this screen for now by not typing in any of this information. But anytime that I come back to this form, and if I just refresh the screen, or I'm going to keep getting this window until this information is collected. And so it's just kind of like a nagging pop-up window reminder. Hey, I need this information. I need you to collect this. So let's just type in some information here for the rating. Let's say it's a 4-pole, and we'll just put a frame number in there. And we'll hit OK. Okay, so over here on the left-hand side, you'll see all our job detail information. We've got our job number. If it was associated with one of those repair departments, it would show here. You can create custom job types. So maybe it's a 3-phase rewind, then you can change the job type to say 3-phase rewind. Or if it's 3-phase recondition, DC repair, quick inspection, whatever it wants to do, you can set up job types and associate them here. We've got a parts location field, our status. So these out of the box are some of the statuses that come pre-set up, but you can customize these. By default, it's going to go into the booked in status. And if I ever want to see the history of the status, then I can look at that. And then as it changes statuses, we'll be able to see the history that was provided. Other things we can do with job status is automate that. By the fact of a technician checking a box, filling in a task, doing something that was required, once that task is completed, you can associate a status with it. So I always like to use at the end of disassembly and ready to quote. The last task the technician fills in on his disassembly inspection, he fills it in, then we can automate that status to update to say ready to quote now. And so we can automate a lot of this job status for you. Or you can come in here and manually check it to the next one. Customer contact, the order date, you get reason for repair, cause of failure. We have a preset list of cause of failures. You can also create your own list of cause of failures, but instead of having to type each one off, let's just say we had these 3 options. And if I add these, then it'll quickly plop them in here into my field for me instead of having to type those in. Next one for required work works similar in the same way. These are more descriptive, trying to capture in the kind of full repair process. So your disassembly, dismantle, cleaning, testing, and things like that. So if you have some canned required work options, then you can build those in here and then quickly place those back in here without having to type them. All right. And then just schedule dates and priorities. So if we wanted to say this was a rush no OT, customer PO information, previous job, contractor, previous job dates, and things like that. And then once the job is completed, we can check it off as being completed. And then what that does is just remove it from the technician being able to change any tasks. It will remove it from the job dashboard that we were looking at previously, and mark the job as completed. Next here is our nameplate classes. And so when I created this job, I associated a motor. And so you'll see I can give give it a name if I want. So earlier I mentioned like circ water pump number 9, or 8. And we can type that in. We can input the make, model, serial number, and then, out of the box, we include as many nameplate fields as we can think of or that would be used. And so you'll see there's a whole robust list of options here that you can type in. We do have custom fields. So if you want to create your own custom nameplate fields, and you can do that, or you can add or remove or rename the terminology however you see fit. And then the last thing I need to do is just associate a repair packet with this job. In this case, I've automated it. So when I created this and associated that and told the system that I have a motor, I can have it automatically assign the corresponding packets or repair packets to this job. And so here at the top, you'll see I've got one here called SPS Repair Report. This is based on that PDF that we were looking at here. It is the name of it, SPS Repair Report. And it was added to this job automatically. And then the second form, you're not limited to just having one repair form associated with the job. You can have multiple forms associated here. So if you have a form for your repair, in this case, I've added another form for a rotor. And then the rotor would allow me to collect rotor information. So that is just kind of a secondary form that you can use on a job. The other thing you can do is associate the same form multiple times across a job. So if you were to get a job and your customer wanted to keep, and it was received with 4 motors, and they want to keep all those 4 motors under one job number, then what you could do is have this repair report on here 4 times, and be able to work each motor independently and then create independent reports and upload photos and things like that. We have some audit options up here. We can quickly run a report from here. And if we needed to add an additional form, then what we could do, like I mentioned, we can add this form multiple times. Now, I do need to differentiate it from this first repair report. So I need to give it a nickname. And so we could call this, maybe this was CWP 9. We called the other one CWP 8, maybe the CWP 9 that came in with it. And so we'll add this form. And now we have 3 forms associated with this job. All right. I've got my job created. Back out the dashboard. I want to jump over now into what the technicians view and how they interact with these tasks and upload photos. So for them, I'm going to go to this Quality Manager tab. And you'll see a couple bits of information here. We've got some tabs across the top. This is the job that we have pulled up currently. I can change that if I want. Our job list starts with the newest job on top and older jobs being pushed down towards the bottom. And so we could select our job. If we wanted to, filter out jobs based on by customer, then I can also type in some letters here and filter everything out by Poly Products. Or if I want to find everything that just said job, and then I can narrow down my list by filtering here. I'll just start at the top and kind of go across what some of these buttons do. This first one is expand all groups. If you'll look here, we call this our task grid. In here, I have a list of 6 groupings. Right now, they are all collapsed. In here, you can see motor receiving. I have 0 of 5 complete. That means this grouping has 5 tasks, and I can expand it by clicking on it. So all this button does is allow me to expand all and then collapse all at one time. The attachment button will take me into the attachment manager for this job. Right now, we have no reports or photos have been uploaded to it. So we'll circle back to this here towards the end. The next one is the assistance button. This is where I was explaining the instant messaging system from technician to supervisor. So what I can do is I can select from, let's just choose myself, and we'll say, hey, Mike, you need some help. And then we'll send this. All right. And so the message gets sent. And so if I quickly just jump back over to my QM Wizard dashboard, there's a couple things that have happened. One, I got an email from the system. Let me know assistance required on job number 4. And here's the note. Hey, Mike, I need some help. The other place it shows up here is now on this assistance required widget. And so now you'll see here for this job, I need some assistance. Mike sent me the message, and to view the message, I can click on here. Hey, Mike, I need some help. And then I can reply back directly to him. And so that's a 2-way communication from supervisor to technician and vice versa. And then if we just need to mark it off as red, we can check it as red. And then that way it removes it from our widget so nobody comes behind us thinking it was not seen. Add work. I mentioned this list of tasks comes driven from a PDF. And these PDFs are static. So the tasks that get associated with the job are the tasks that live here on this PDF. But in some cases, you may get a piece of equipment that has an additional component or needs you to add a task to this list. And so we have some mechanisms to do that. You can add an entire grouping over here, or you can just add a single task. So if we needed to create a task to replace the sound insulation material, maybe in a top hat, then we can check this off and then request to have this task added to our list here. And so that way we make sure it gets checked. You can build a preset list of these additional tasks so you can add them on the fly, or you can manually create a task and then type it in, you know, inspect oil chiller. And we could create a task and have it added to our list over here to ensure that our technicians are capturing that data. Job info is just a kind of like a comments field here. We could add some comments here. You know, has bearing spacers on DE. If we save this and then later we can come back to this job info and we can see any comments that have been added to any previous existing comments. So if there was some communication from the manager or supervisor, they could add it as a comment here, or maybe they need to pay particular attention to a certain part or something like that. And you can have this kind of as a general comments field here. And then last is just kind of a job sheet here. This is just a general job entry sheet. It just kind of gives overall job details, the job date, the priority, any job information, those cause of failure fields, required work, and then nameplate information. And so we'll send out that. So that's just a common job sheet. So a lot of our customers may print this off and you know, tie it onto a frame or a piece of equipment or something like that. All right. So just a couple more. I'm under the quality tab. I'm going to jump over to the job messages tab and just kind of explain this real quick. I mentioned here we have a way for instant messaging between supervisor and technician, but maybe we need job messaging, something that applies to just to this job in particular. And so what I can do is if I create a new message here, and I can say, maybe I want to target the machining department to let them know or be aware of a certain thing. You know, I use Mike's 10 through 12 inch to measure. You know, maybe they had to use a special tool to do this, or maybe there's something specific that they need to pay attention to, or whatever it may be. We can send this message. And then what happens is anytime I'm going to switch jobs real quick. I switch to a different job. But anytime I come back to this job number 4 here and select it, I'll be prompted and let me know, hey, I've got some unread department messages. Please view the tab. And up here, you'll see I've got a number 1. Let me know I've got an unread message. And so when I come in here, I can see on this date, Mike sent a message to the machining department, and here's the message. And again, I can check this off as read. And so that way, if any following technicians behind me notice that this was unread or unacknowledged, I'll check it off as read so that doesn't happen. And then the last, we have a report tab here. This is what we're going to finish up the demo with. We're going to come back here and take all those pictures and results and then generate a report and have that available. All right. Again, I mentioned that we want to start at the top and work our way down to the bottom. And so when you set up these forms, you know, step 1 all the way down to the last step. Quickly, I've got another kind of overall progress complete bar here. And similar to earlier on the dashboard, I can click on it and pull out the individual repair departments that are associated with it. This little blue button here is just for an advanced search. So if I can't find something just by typing it in this box, then I can click here and then we can search by serial number, make, model, customers, job ranges, or job numbers, and then we can search and target for that specific job. All right. Here is form 1 of 3. I mentioned we can associate several forms with a job. So if we need to switch over to our rotor form to collect rotor coil data, then we could switch that form and then we get the tasks that apply to it. or if we need to switch over to our third SPS repair report, then we can switch to it. And then we've got a new set of tasks that apply just to this form. Some other ways you can use this form is maybe if you get a motor gearbox combo and you've got a motor repair packet and a gearbox repair packet, then you can have that motor repair packet and the gearbox repair packet associated here with the same job. And then last is the repair departments. I mentioned when you set these up, you can associate tasks that apply to certain repair departments. And so if I want to see tasks that apply to just the machining department, then I can filter that and find the tasks that only apply to our machining department. This is the same filter that gets applied to the basic 1 and basic 2 users. So if a basic 1 user is associated with the machining department, then they will only see the tasks that apply here to the machining department. And if they are a basic 2 user, by default, it will filter to machining department, but they will be able to unfilter and see all tasks or target other tasks in other areas. So to begin these tasks, I'm going to start at the top, and I'm just going to click on here. This is not a grouping, it's just a single task called incoming image 1. And what I did is I created a task specifically for just taking and uploading a picture here. And the reason I've done that is because on my report, down here on my cover page, I have a dedicated spot for an incoming photo. And so I want this photo to land here on this page every time. And so what I did is just create a task to make that happen. All right. So to take a picture, you'll see this field is read only. I can't do anything with it. I provided some instructions up here at the top for the technician on how to do this. So use the camera icon below to upload and capture a photo the motor has received. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this camera icon, or I alternatively could click on this one. Now, I am on a PC, and so in this case, I'm actually going to have to browse in this photo. But QM Wizard is designed to work on the tablet. And by using the tablet, you'll be able to click on this and take and upload the picture directly from the tablet. So that way they're not having to go get a digital camera or a SD card and transfer those over. They'll be able to use the tablet, snap the picture, and then upload it directly here. For me on my PC, I'm just going to click and browse in a photo that I have. And I just kind of have some generic photos here. But I have a picture of one that looks like it's incoming. I'm not limited to just one attachment here. If I want to upload a dozen photos, then I can do that. I'm not limited to just this one upload. And then the other thing is I can edit some descriptions underneath this. If I want to add a description and say, hey, you know, this was as received or received with coupling or something like that, then we can add a description and have that description show up on the report later with the photo. All right. So to navigate through, we have these buttons down at the bottom. The left button would take me back a step if there was, but this being the first one, there is not a next step or previous step. So the checkbox would take me back to our list here. And one thing I want to draw attention to is you'll notice as I come back, we'll start changing colors on a lot of these tasks here. Right now, everything is in black, meaning it's incomplete. And as we go through this and we complete them and they're passing, we can either turn it green for passing and acceptable, or if it gets flagged for out of tolerance, we have different color levels depending on the severity level for that. And then we'll circle back and I'll show you what that looks like here. So I'm going to go into my next set of grouping here. And these are the ones that were set up as the checkboxes here on my PDF. And so if you'll notice, we've mimicked the settings here for them. So was it received with an eye bolt? Yes or no? Received with a coupling or pulley. And the way these are set up, I can only select one of these options. I can't select both. It didn't come in with a coupling and a pulley or none. So it's one of these three options. Received with the shaft key, we'll say yes. Does it have a terminal box? And we'll say yes. And does it have a terminal box cover? We'll also select yes. Now, while I'm here, I also wanted to demonstrate some ways that we can also hide things when they don't apply. So in this case, we have two tasks for terminal box cover or terminal box, right? If I select no for this option for terminal box, I can optionally choose to remove this task from the list so the technician doesn't have to type in NA. It doesn't look unanswered or however that may be. So if I check no here, you'll notice this task will then disappear. The way you can use this in other ways is like anti-friction versus sleeve bearing. So if you have an anti-friction bearing, they check that, then you can hide anything that correlates to a sleeve bearing task. Other ways I use it is like wound rotor versus squirrel cage rotor. And removing out and stripping things when they don't apply just based on the results of previous tasks. And anytime we hide a task like this and we go to run a report later, we'll fill in NAs on the report for you so they don't look like, again, like it was skipped or ignored. All right. So I'm going to go here to my next grouping, air gap measurements. And in here, you'll notice I've got a document associated with it. So you are able to associate work instructions, customer specifications, references to like this in this case, the ESA AR100. And what I've done, instead of including the entire AR100, I've isolated out just the page that applies to this particular grouping. So here for air gap of machines. And I even went a little step further and highlighted the background just to draw attention to it. Again, for efficiency, and the guys always having this. This helps promote consistency across repairs. It also is a good way to control document management. So you always have the latest and greatest. There's no printouts running around the floor, or guys having to check out books from a storeroom, or whatever that may be. And so you can associate those documents here. And so you'll see that. All right, so we'll start filling in some tasks here. If you see these blue arrows here, it is just because some cases on a tablet, the screen would be reduced a little bit. And so if this field was shortened and you need to type in a long description, it may get cut off towards the end and you won't see it all. So all this does is just bring this up into a larger view. And so now I can do kind of more of a paragraph style writing if I needed to. And then we can save that. I saved it here. It didn't allow it only because these tasks are set up to only allow numeric input. And so it didn't allow that text that I was typing in. So let's do some measurements here. We've got our 12 o'clock air gap. We'll see 25, 23, 22. And let's just do another 22. And once I click out and let this save, you'll notice these 4 grayed out boxes down here are going to be calculated. So based on those 4 inputs, it's calculated my minimum tolerance and my maximum tolerance, the average. And then I like to include a task in QM Wizard. It's kind of like my green light, red light task. Is it passing or is it failing? And so in this case, it came back with intolerance. But if we had a measurement, let's say that was outside of the allowed min-max, and what happens is it gets flagged. You'll see my task here updated to out of tolerance. And then we flagged, hey, we've got an error. Your air gap results, your measurements are out of tolerance. And what we do is we require the technician to input a failure note. And we hope that they would be descriptive. This is where they could suggest a type repair. This is where they could suggest recommended parts for replacement or anything like that. And this is the note that shows up on that failure report that we were looking at from the widget earlier. And so here we got our air gap measurements. Let's just say DE baffle couldn't be fully removed and interfered with our measurements, or whatever that may be. Also here in any of these fields where that I can type in, on the tablet, you can also use the keyboard microphone and do speech to text. So your technician, if he's in the shop and his hands are dirty, you can tap on the microphone and then speak in there and do the speech to text and have it filled in for them in this box. So we'll hit OK. We'll accept this. And if you'll notice, my name of my task here turned yellow to kind of differentiate between passing and a failing task. Just to kind of go over our validation levels, we have 3 levels. The one that you just saw is a level 1. When it's triggered, it requires the technician to come in and just type in the comment like you saw. Our next level up is a level 2, and it requires a comment, but it also requires supervisor interaction. And there'll be a password box for the password or for the supervisor to come in and fill in to acknowledge the failure. The way I like, and I'm sorry, and I'll go on to the last third one we have is a level 3 and is a job stopper. If it gets triggered, it puts all the tasks on hold and locks the job. It prevents them from doing any further work and lets them know, hey, you've reached a critical error. You may want to apply these level 3 failures on things that make a job become beyond economical repair. It's cheaper to sell them a new unit than it is to repair this one at this point. And so we hold the job, let the technician know to get with the supervisor. And then optionally, you can go to your customer and see what they want to do. And maybe they want to go ahead and repair it. Then you can unlock it and let the technicians continue working. Or at that point, you finish out the job and sell them a new unit. All right. This one was a level 1, and I do have a level 2 that I can show you here in a little bit. All right, my next grouping here is winding tests. Again, I've got some documents associated with it. So if I choose to expand this one is just instructions on doing this. So for consistency across your technicians and everybody doing it the same way, guy has been there his first week to the guy who's been there 30 years, you would hope that they're all doing it the same way. The next is just a reference back to the ISA AR100 for electrical testing. And again, I just kind of associated just the relevant pages that applied to this grouping. The other thing I may want to do while I'm inside this grouping, besides filling in my tasks, is now taking pictures. While I'm in here doing my winding tests and inspections, this is where I want to be uploading my pictures of windings. And so to do that, again, I can come up here to my camera icon. And on my tablet, I could just start taking and collecting pictures of these components. But here I'm going to browse one in. So my first one, let's just pick a picture of some windings here. The other thing I want to do is upload just photos that apply to windings or winding tests. The reason being is later when we go to generate a report, we get the descriptions underneath the photos. And they will inherit the description of the grouping that they were uploaded to. So in this case, winding tests. So if we were to upload a picture of, I'll just grab a couple more winding photos here just to kind of fill this in. But if I were to upload a photo of, let's say, an end bell, later when I go to generate this report, I'm going to get a picture here of this end bell, and the picture description is going to say winding test. So a little misleading. The other thing is if I'm a supervisor and I'm looking for a particular photo, either I want to send to a customer or I want to look at it a little closer, then I know I can come to this winding test section and then pull up these photos here and then be able to navigate and see through these photos and look at the pictures of just my windings here. I'm sorry. The other thing we can do here is we're not limited to just photos. We're in this winding test section, and most shops now in this case have some kind of winding analyzer or some kind of test equipment that produces its own reports. So what I can do is actually go in and browse for those PDF reports. In this case, I've got some AWA reports. And so I can actually upload the report to these tasks. And then later when we go to generate a report, I can optionally choose to have this report merged in with my main report later on. And I can upload as many of these documents here or these reports as well, just like the pictures. All right. So we'll do a couple tasks here. We'll do winding temperature. I'm going to skip filling this task in just because I want to provide you with a sample of what happens. Even though I'm an administrator, I can still make certain tasks required. And so this task here has an asterisk next to it. Let me know I need this task, it's required. And so if I try to navigate and bypass it, I'm going to get a notification. Two things. One, the stator insulation resistance to ground task hasn't been completed. And another one is saying I have a device or tool required. You can associate tools with tasks, and I'll show you how that works here. Let's fill these in. So I'll fill in some measurements. So this is our insulation to ground. And then I've got a calculated task here that will calculate it to 40 degrees C based on the AR100 recommendation. And then again, I've got my little green light, red light task down here. It just lets me know it passed. But similar to the previous one for air gap, if this measurement was a little low, then we can flag it, again, requiring a comment before they can continue on. And so let's just say windings contaminated. And the great thing about this is I spell like a mechanic, and so I also type with 2 fingers like a mechanic, and so it'll notify me if I've misspelled it. So windings contaminated, recommend clean bake and retest. All right. And then needed repairs to stator windings. Well, we just said steam clean, bake, and retest. Now, I want to go back and circle to what this tool does. You can associate your devices or tools to a task. And so what this does is it provides me a list of tools that only apply here to taking an insulation to resistance measurement. I've got a list of 5 meggers here, and you'll see we've kind of color coded them. Yellow kind of lets you know, hey, it's kind of coming up within, I think, the next 40 days. If it's colored white, it means it's not due anytime soon. You'll see this goes out to 2025. This one is due coming up within 60 days. So we highlighted this kind of orange peach color. And then red means it's expired. So this calibration due date is beyond what is allowed. So this expired on the 17th, and you'll see I'm unable to associate this tool with this task. So what I could do is send one of those messages to my supervisor and let them know I've got this out of calibration device down here. And then I can, add to the message as needed, and then just let my supervisor know that I have this device down here. Alternatively, if we're using a different one that is within calibration, then I can just say I used Megger 1 on this, and we select that, and now I can continue on. My next grouping is for bearings, and I'm sorry this page is a little busy, but I just kind of wanted to show you some examples of kind of how you can set up work instructions and documentation and things like that. So here, this is uploaded just as a document. So if I click on it, it is a chart from the ESA AR100 for bearing fit tolerances. So for reference, but you can also embed a video. So here, this is just an embedded video from YouTube. So if I click on play, then we can actually play this video in line. So if you guys have like an internet or a document library, a video library on how to perform these tasks, and you can embed those videos directly in here with this set of tasks that apply here. The other thing here is you'll see, besides just a video, I've just embedded just a diagram here of the planes and the orientation that I want these measurements taken in. So you can kind of use this whole little area up here to help gather that information up and provide it back to your technician. The other thing is while I'm in here in bearings, obviously would want to be taking pictures of my bearings. And so we'll find some here somewhere. Maybe one more photo. I can also bulk upload. So I'm just going to grab several pictures here. They may not really be applicable. But if I want to upload multiple photos all at one time, then I can select all these and hit OK. And then upload all these at bulk at one time. All right, so let's fill in some bearing information. We can automate some of this. We've provided a chart for it, but if we know our bearing number is a 6224, and I get some options for our bearing type, ball or roller or other. And let's just say this is a standard ball bearing. And then I've got 2 options or a couple options here for tolerance class type. I can select ESA, and if I select ESA, it's going to reference the table that ESA provided, give you the tolerance class and the min maxes based on that. Or if maybe you're an SKF certified shop and you want to use SKF, there's really no big differences until you get into a couple roller bearing fits really where these two differentiate from each other. But if I select SKF, then it does the same thing, provides me with the tolerance class they recommend along with the min maxes. And then the third option is I can go into manual mode. In some cases, you may get a OEM tolerance class that kind of goes against what ESA recommends. So let's say if your manufacturer recommended an M6 instead of an M5, then I can type in M6 and update those min-max tolerances based on that specific ISO tolerance class. Or if I need to go all out and just go into manual mode, I can select other here, and then everything kind of becomes a free text field, and then I can input my tolerances in manually. Whatever that may be. I'm going to switch back to ESA. and bearing type to other, and we'll get our tolerances put back here. All right, I've only got a few more tasks to fill in, and then we'll generate a report, and then we can finish up with any final questions here. So I'm going to intentionally fail this just by 1/10 of a thousandth. This is our minimum tolerance. So I'll just put it in an 8 instead of a 9. And you'll see this one gets flagged, and it's a little different. Instead of a yellow color, we get a deeper red color. And so this one's set up as one of the level 2 failures, and this one requires the interaction with supervisor to continue. So if I try to bypass this, it's not going to allow it. I need to enter in my note. Let's just say journal is undersized. Recommend weld and machine. All right. And then it's still, if I try to bypass this, I'm not allowed to. And so in this case, I get my supervisor to come over. We've discussed the recommended repair, or maybe he's verified my measurements or my mics were set up right. And now we've got that supervisor interaction. They type in their password, and then now we can continue on. I don't have one of the level 3 set up in here because, like I said, it is a full job stopper, and it places everything on hold. So speaking of everything going on hold, let me just circle back out to our dashboard one quick. And you'll notice now by color, if I'm doing a job review as a supervisor, I can quickly kind of scroll through my list and find those items that are failing. Have they been fully completed? No, but I've got some red information here. And if I scroll through, then I can see my results of the bearing journal failing here. And that's what was flagged in color and it red. Okay. So one last thing I mentioned earlier about in-process quality control checks or hold points. And so I've designated this task as to be the end of my disassembly, and let's go into a hold status until we get that job approval back from our customer. And so we'll select here needed repairs. Well, in my failure note, I mentioned weld machine. So I'm going to select weld machine. And instantly what that's going to do is save and then place these tasks and everything on it in hold. And so I get a notification here. The job has a hold applied. And then we need to send a message to one of our supervisors to let them know that this point has been reached. And so again, I can send an email to or send a message to Mike. Two things are going to happen. I'm going to get an email in my box with this message. And then 2, it's going to show up on that job dashboard out here on the QM dashboard. And so we'll send this. All right. And if you'll notice now, everything has kind of gone into a read-only status, and everything has been applied to a hold. So I'm not able to modify this until this hold is approved. And if I come back out here to our main our job list or task list here, then you'll see everywhere across it says holds applied. Also, I should mention the way I've set this hold point up is to lock every task on this form, the full job. You can target specific departments. So if we wanted to place a hold just on the task in the machining department, but allow mechanical and winding to continue on, then we can do that. We can target those tasks in that particular department and just place those on hold. And that way we don't uphold anybody else. And then if the mechanics have their own individual hold points, then we can place their task on hold and allow other departments to keep working. And so you can target them specifically if you need to. Okay, so let's approve this, release our job. We've got one final task, and then we'll run a report, and then we'll be wrapped up here. So I want to exit out to my job dashboard or QM dashboard here. And if you'll notice, I've got 2 things now in my assistance required widget. One is the assistance message that came from triggering this. Hey, please be advised the job is now on hold. You can fill out optional checklists if you need to, or mark as red and remove this. And so we'll mark this as red. And then the next thing to do is to actually approve it and release those tasks to work. First thing I want to do is just kind of, again, I'm going to bring up the email that got sent to me. Just gets sent from a SpringPoint email sent to me and let me know the assistance was required and it's on hold. The great thing about QM Wizard is if one of these hold points were to happen, QM Wizard is all fed through the web. So if you were sitting at home on the couch and you get an email notification about it being on hold, you could pull up your phone, bring up the QM Wizard website and be able to review this job from your phone or your tablet or your laptop from sitting at home, or if you're at the coffee shop or wherever you may be, then you can pull up this dashboard and be able to review those jobs on the go, out in the field, and then still be able to approve approve these items. And so we'll type in the password. We can add a note here if we needed to, and then we'll hit OK. And then approve is succeeded. And so now if I come back out to the quality manager, you'll see now I'm on job 4 again. All my tasks are unlocked once more. And so I'm just going to jump down here, and I've got one more photo to upload. Just like we did the incoming photo, I'm going to take a picture now of it final. And we'll save that. And then, you know, I'm terrible about this. I want to circle back before we generate this report, because there is one function that I skipped over that I'd like to show you. And one is this pencil icon. Besides just taking photos, what I can do is actually take a photo and annotate directly onto the photo. So what I could do here is instead, we could use our tablet to take a picture and upload it. And then we can have it placed on this drawing canvas here. And so what I've got is some drawing tools here. And so now maybe I want to, you know, draw attention to a particular point of failure. So on my tablet, I could use my finger and drag and drop and draw these things. And so, you know, maybe we want to draw attention out to a blown spot that we want to send to our customer. Then I can save that, annotate directly onto this picture. Some other ways you might be able to use this is if you get bearings with spacers and you want to take pictures over the top of the bearing, draw out, you know, where the spacers are located and what size that, you know, whatever those spacer dimensions are and things like that. Other ways to use this. And so we can save it. And now it's become an attachment, just like our other photos. And lastly, one other way we can use this pencil here is we have these, what we call stamps. You know, when I was working in the shop as a mechanic, whenever I'd have a vertical thrust motor come in, I would have to draw some kind of crude picture like this that would help me understand the orientation of the bearings, you know, especially if we had a thrust bearing that had, you know, back-to-back facing like this or something. We would draw some pictures like this on our paperwork, and then later on we went to assemble it. We'd have to come back to this photo, and then that way we get it back in this orientation. But what we can do, let me clear this out, is use a stamp. And so what I've done is we've created several different kind of thrust orientations. So maybe back-to-back thrust bearings. And I can place this in here real quick and save it as an attachment here to this job. And so as the assembly technician, I can quickly come back and use this for reference and be able to install them back the same way. Other stamps we have besides thrust bearings, we have a little diagram, some stator windings. So if you want to use it, we have some, let's just say different terminal strips, 1 terminal strip or 2 terminal strips. And so what I can do here is just quickly draw out some RTD connections. Or alternatively, I could take a picture of the terminal box itself as and draw directly on it. And maybe we'd want to label how they were received. You know, this was received label 1, 2, 3, and 4. And maybe if it had a jumper or something, you know, we can get creative with this and be able to draw that and then again be able to use this as reference later for assembly. Save this. And then lastly, we have a couple things just for some heaters. So maybe if you have 2 heaters in parallel and you want to document out, let's just say it's 120 volt, you know, 500 watt, you know, and be able to draw on these heaters or something like that. Not only that, to kind of show how they were connected when they were coming incoming, but be able to label them. Save this so if you need to order some more or something like that, then you can see how they are arranged and set up. Okay, so that was the last of it. I'm going to now run our report. I'll bring it up. I have a couple options here. First off, I can email this report as I'm generating it. So if I want maybe somebody internally in our company to get this report knowing it's done, or maybe I want to go ahead and send it to our customer while we're generating this, then we can optionally email this while we're generating it and add a note. We can send it as a link instead of an attachment. So if your attachment has just too many photos and it's become too large and being rejected, then you can send them a secure link and they can click on that and browse and download or print from the web. And then there's an images tab. You can adjust how some of the photos that we've taken along the way. You can adjust some of the formatting on them. Like maybe I want nine pictures on a page instead of 6, or if I want to adjust some font sizing or add a header on the top of our photo report. I'll just put in something generic here. All right, and I'll go back to our file here. Here I've got this template drop down. You can have as many outputs of this report that you want. In this case, I only have one output that looks like this, but if you have a customer that has a formatted report that they require, you can have that dedicated report for them. And so from that drop down, you can pick and choose which report you want to run. The other examples I can provide are kind of like an incoming report that you would send with the quote versus the final report after everything's been done. So you may have 2 different reports there. You can change some different company logos. We have some mechanisms to change it either by the department or by the location. So I know you guys have multiple locations. So one shop may have a logo with their address underneath it versus your location, or different departments like that. And so we have some options for that. We can name it if we want. We'll call it final report. All right, and then down here are some choose and sort pages. By default, our main report is always included, so that's going to be this PDF. But we can choose to have some additional system generated reports that come along with it. One is pictures, because on my report here, I only have 2 spots for photos. So all the other photos that I've uploaded along the way, what would do is create a system generated photo report for you. And so that would be our images report. The task failure report is a report that we are looking at from the QM Wizard dashboard. So whenever one of those tasks was triggered as out of tolerance and that failure report there that was showing on, we can choose to include that failure report with it if we want. I associated that Megger when we were doing the resistance to ground test. So if I want to provide a calibration report on the tools that were used on this job, then I can choose to include it. Testers and initials report. This is the equivalent to kind of like an audit trail of who did what and when. I see a lot of forms come in where people make their technicians initial and date. Well, this being an electronic system, we can collect that information in the background and skip them from having to type all that in. And so add tester's initials report is that. It's just kind of an audit trail that shows every task and who did it and when. And so if you ever had questions or need to come back, you can do that. We have some options for materials and labor that links back into our ERP system, and I don't have an integration for that to show you here on this site. But we do have a way to request materials and labor and then link back with our ERP system, Motorbase, to get that put into the quote and ordered and managed there. And then here we've got some additional options for additional work reports. I mentioned we could add a task on the fly here and have it added to our list. But by default, it doesn't show on our report because our PDF, again, is static. So it only collects this information. So if you were to add some tasks here to this list and you need to report on it, then we can choose to include those here. And then last is that AWA report that I uploaded here during our winding tests. And so if I want to choose to merge that in with our full report, then I can check that off. And if we had any other PDFs uploaded along the way, then they would show up here and we could check those off. Now, the last thing I can do is rearrange these. So maybe if I want my pictures report to come last, then I can kind of rearrange and drop these pages to show in the order that I want them to. So we'll bump the pictures back up and yeah, we'll just rearrange them in that order. So I'll get my main report, pictures, the AWA, then failure report and tool calibration report. So let's run the report. And what it's going to do is going to go gather up all those task results that we did, plus all the pictures that we uploaded throughout the process, and begin merging these all together and creating this report for us. So we'll give it just a minute. All right. So I get a little pop-up window so I can do a quick review of the report if I wanted to here. But for you guys, I'm going to open it up into a larger view to make it a little easier. So I'm going to go into my attachment button here. Oh, I don't know if you noticed, we also have a parts location field. The idea of your technician updating where the parts are. So they disassemble it, and you have a parts pan on a labeled shelf. Then you can update the shelf number here, or maybe the frame is in a different shipping area, or if you got labeled areas throughout your facility, then you can update the parts location here. All right, so attachments. Now you'll see we've got several uploaded pictures and documents here, our AWA reports and all the pictures that we've uploaded along the way, and along with the drawings. So let's open this report into a full page, and we'll just kind of scroll through here. You'll see it's plugged in my customer name, the job number, the check boxes that we had, some nameplate information, the reason for repair and cause of failure, the check boxes that we filled in, the insulation resistance to ground measurements that we did. And whenever you have a validation set up on a task, you can also have it colorize the report for you. And so in this case, I've associated a failure with the color yellow. And so we draw attention to that on the report. If it were passing, we can associate the color green, or if it was NA and you want it to turn gray and have a gray background, then you can associate different colors based on passing, failing, or NA. Again, here's our bearing measurements that we took. It was a fail. In this case, I have it turning red, recommended repair. Our air gap measurements that were also out of tolerance, I've had it turn orange. And now the two tasks that I had designated as taking a picture. So we have our incoming photo, and then right next to it, our final photo. And then anything else that we uploaded along the way, you'll see here are now showing. Here's the diagram for the heaters, the terminal strip here. You can choose to hide these on the report. I just didn't do that. But if these are collected for internal references only, then you can choose optionally to hide these from the report and just keep them internally. And if we scroll through, if you'll recognize, this is the drawing that I annotated on. Underneath it gets this description of winding tests. And this is why I kind of focused on, while I'm in the winding tests, I want to be uploading winding photos, because instead I've uploaded an in-bell and now I've got a description underneath it of winding tests, which is, kind of misleading or silly, I guess, if you look at it that way. And then we scroll through, here's, more winding tests, some bearing dimension photos. And this is just where I grabbed a whole bulk load of photos and uploaded those here for you. And then as I keep scrolling through, we'll scroll down. Here's the AWA test that we uploaded with it and merged in. And then we'll come down and we'll start getting the other system generator reports, our failure report. So our ground tests that failed, the journals that failed, and the air gaps that failed. And then lastly, our tools used report. It lets me know here I use this Megger 1, that's the device ID, and the calibration date that is on that device and what task it was used on. So if your customers are requiring you to associate tools and document and report on that, then we have an easy mechanism to do that. And that wraps up the demo for QM Wizard. This will open it up now and see if you had any questions.
Yeah, Zach, are you there?
I am.
I didn't put him to sleep, did I? You're still awake?
I'm still here, still
Okay,
watching.
good.
Hey, I'll just say that this will make a great demo. We can repackage this, repurpose this, and it'll become a nice online demo because, no other distractions. So that was really good, Mike.
It was a nice relief to get through the whole thing without being stopped throughout. So thank you for that.
All right, Zach. Questions?
Not too many. I just wondering, so most of this is online. If they're using it on a tablet and there's maybe there's an area of the shop where they don't get internet or they're in the field, are they able to work offline on things that are loaded, or how does that work?
So yeah, so all the full feature stuff is going to come online, but we do have an app for our Spring Point suite. And in there, what you can do is if you know you're going to go into well, first, if you have dead spots in the shop, in that case, I would recommend maybe adding more access points or expanding the web in the shop. But for like your field guys, I know you're going to go in, the plants either don't have cell service or you're going to be in a remote area. So we do have an app. And so what you can do is if you know you're going into an area like that while you have dead cell service, download the jobs that you're going to be working from. So you can take them on the go, you download them to the app, you go out into the field, and similar, just the way we did tasks and take pictures and generate reports and got things for failing and items like that, you can generate out in the field. And then when you get back to an area with an internet connection, then you can just upload and sync that job and all those attachments back into the web like you see here. You'll lose a little bit of functionality with the app, kind of like the hold points, because if you're offline, you're not really going to be able to notify anybody to approve the hold point. So you lose hold points. Some of the instant messaging, again, because you have no cellular connection, so there's no instant messaging. So it really just brings in just the functionality of collecting pictures, inputting measurements and information, and getting failure flags and notifications.
All right. I guess that was my big question.
Yeah, and we're always working on, other pieces to that and improvements. So, even on that offline mode in the app, the mobile time clock, and we have field service time clock capability. So if you have a team going out, the supervisor can